Hello and welcome to Data Driven 2019. I'm Christophe Bertrand. I'm a senior analyst at ESG. I am joined today by Holly Sinclair, who represents the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And Holly, you have a very interesting title. It's a double title. You're a Chief Digital Officer and a Chief Data Officer, so CDO squared. Tell us, what do you do?
It's a good question, because I'm the first person to hold these titles in the Commonwealth. And so, along with Secretary Curtis Wood and Governor Baker, we're defining what that role is. The Executive Office of Technology Services and Security was just created 2 years ago as a secretariat, meaning elevating the IT function to a cabinet-level position. So the Chief Digital Officer is charged with improving constituent digital experience. And then the Chief Data Officer is charged with encouraging data sharing between different secretariats. That can be done through establishing standards or investing in technologies and so on.
It's very interesting because you have this sort of double hat here where you have to share data, so it's the power of data, but also really place yourself in the consumer interaction where you're trying to present more services in in an easier way to consume for the constituents. Now, you mentioned in the keynote here at the event, you talked about data minimization, and I thought that was a very interesting concept. Could you tell us what you mean by that and maybe put it in the context of data privacy?
Sure. So there's this concept that I've read about recently from Fjord's Trends 2019. They look at all the digital trends for a year, and they cited something called data minimalism. And I think that really rang true with me as well. In government, we were really originally, like 2 or 3 years ago, actually probably 5 years at this point ago, looking to open data, put all the data we had on the website, on our websites for people to access. That got very costly. Not a lot of people used that data. It sounded good, it looked great, but not everybody used the data. And so the idea that we've then shifted to is demand-driven data. We provide data when it's asked for and when people want it, whether that's a policymaker or the public. You know, when we are a government organization, we have a different level, the public has a different level of expectation and trust for us than they do for private sector. And so we have to be very careful and very thoughtful about what data we collect and what we do with it. And then I think the next wave will be for us to link that to transparency, so our constituents know when we're using the data and why. And so data minimalism is really about being very deliberate about what data you collect and only collect that data. And you really have to link that to your business objectives and then make sure that the data you're collecting really can sort of create that positive feedback loop you need between your objectives. Are you meeting them? Can you see that signal in that data? And can you affect the change that you want?
Right. It's really this combination of privacy in many ways where you're trying to minimize the amount of exposure from a private perspective. The extension of the individual is the data in many ways. Mm-hmm. And then the business where you're connecting that data you're collecting to effect a result, which is probably, in this case, a government service, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you place yourself and sort of look ahead in the next 5 to 10 years and look at government in general, not just at the state level, but maybe in a broader fashion, what do you see happening to big data, or should we call it small data now?
Well, I talk about big data as being a relative term. So to a certain extent, we don't have very many big data sets, I think, defined by multinational corporations and such. I think we'll be more focused on modular approaches, being able to pull pieces off of whatever we're investing in, whether it's a technology stack or thinking about how to stamp out algorithms and make them more transparent to our constituents. I think we'll be looking at modular approaches and seeing what we can reuse different places and then what we can quickly change out so we can keep up with technology. One of the challenges we have in government is we're just catching up with private sector constantly. Now, there are some benefits to that. We sidestep some of the pains of the evolution that needs to happen, but we have a hard time keeping up. And so I think we really need to get better at catch up and keeping up with technology. So when we purchase almost anything in technology, it costs a lot of time for us. We often are buying things and it ends up being for a 5 to 10 year time horizon, not a 2-year time horizon. So anything that we can buy off the shelf or that's a service is preferred as long as it meets our needs and the constituents' needs. I think the other piece is, as we've already seen, data is really important. We have limited time and resources, so we really need to be strategic about where we spend our time and resources, and data is the best way, in addition to talking to people, for us to really target and get the best return on our dollar.
Excellent. Well, it's really what I call this concept of intelligent data management, where
Yes.
the data has context and content, and you understand what it is, you understand what to do with it, and you use it to be better at automating and learning about what processes can be and should be doing. So, well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for a great keynote. I'd like to also thank our viewers for taking the time.